Hi there. Just a quick announcement before we get started. So I'm currently working on a C# tutorial. So that's why you haven't seen any new videos on my channel. So I'm trying to figure out what the topics that I want to cover and how to approach it. But hopefully next week I'm gonna have the first part of it, and then we'll see how it's gonna go from there. Now, in this video, I want to start a new project, and the purpose of this live stream is to provide some getting started tips on one of my packages. So the package that I'm talking about is the SPUC, which has the collections of all these units for visual scripting, if you're doing visual scripting programming. And the current version is 1.14. So if there are some demo units that I have here, and also the add mob I guess plugin for visual scripting. So if you want to do add mob with visual scripting, right, this is for, yeah, you can use the package, this package. Those are available free as demo, but the full one, it's not for sale. So I have, wait, no, wrong one. I have purchased it, and right here, SPUC 1.14. So to get started, you just download it, and then we can go to the download folder. Right there, and it's a Unity package, so you can just drag and drop it into your assets folder. So that's how you get started with importing this package. So let's minimize those folders. So inside the SPUC folder, I have three folders. So game templates, and we can take a look at the templates that I have here. They're not a complete game templates. I'm thinking of actually creating a complete game template with user interface and something that you can actually take and start your game from. So like a starting point for a game with, I guess the user interface is what lacks on all of these templates. So have like a Flappy Cube. So if you want to do something like a Flappy Bird or style, have that, and have some Fall Switch, which is just I guess a hyper casual phone game. Then just say click, find them all. Just you try to find objects in a scene, and you need to find them. Then side scroller, shooting range. This is the tutorials that I've been creating. So the shooting range is the tutorials on the bow I did. So let's actually right here. So we have a bow and arrow, cannon, and a Nerf gun. So that those are the latest videos that I did, was creating these scenes to demonstrate how you can create that. So just some templates that you can go and check out how I use the SPUC units to create those templates. And I guess you can learn if you're one someone like me, I like to learn by seeing how it's used. So I would go into the templates and just browse around and see how it works and what's available, and learning it that way. But here I have some scripts that not that much scripts, but most of them I have for this package is these units. So I think the last time I counted was like 60 or something like that. And let's take a look and start using them. So we can click import. It's gonna import those units. Now I'm going to go inside here and open one of the templates. Let's do the shooting range, I guess. Shooting range, bow and arrow. So this is my shooting range game template. And now if I go inside here, bow setup, range, now if I go inside here and click Edit Graph, if I do that, we're gonna have some problems. It's the first time I'm launching Visual Scripting in this project. So it's importing all of the nodes and generating all the nodes for me. But as soon as that's going to be done, we can continue using SPUC and Visual Scripting. So I decided to make this this live stream because people are purchasing this SPUC package, and some people still getting hard time to get started with it and don't know where to start. So it seems like didn't get any problems there, but I'm probably not using any SPUC units there. But let me see if I can get into an error somewhere. So far so good. There is, oh, I replaced the SPUC units here. Let's go to something that has more of my SPUC units. So let's go into the test. And in here, let's go edit. And there we go. So see, like I'm getting these errors right here. And that is because after you import any visual scripting into Unity, so any visual scripting components from a package or drop new files in, you want to make sure that you go to the project settings and visual scripting and click generate the units again, because I think it's generate. I always get confused which one, generate or generate nodes. It's generate. So click generate, and that's going to go through and generate the units again, and any units that weren't resolved correctly, they're going to get fixed. So if we go inside here, you can see that all of those units were fixed, but the values actually got changed for this unit, for this graph right here, because I've opened the graph before before I've correctly generated those units. So since I didn't save the scene, I think I should be able to get away with this. So I'll open another test project and go back. I think I could have just reopened the test project, but just make sure. And then if I go back in here, actually no, it seems like the values are actually saved. So just, yeah, when you import it, just the first thing to do is to go to project settings and generate. And that way you'll avoid any problems that can be created if you do that. If you open a graph. I don't know, I'm always showing the wrong way of doing it first so that I show what happens. I probably should just show the right way of doing it, and that's going to be probably better for you guys to learn that. But okay, so I'm going to start a new scene. So I have a sample scene right here. Let's actually use that. And inside SPUC, let's go in here. In the SB units, you can find this graph right here, the very first one, and it's called 0 all SB units. And the reason why I have 0, so it's going to be the first one in the list, and it can be easier for you to find. But if you opened, this is, I guess, the best way I've found so far to get all of the units that are available in one place, and like kind of group them together so you can see what's available for you to use. So you can browse around and see the different options, and I do have some instructions on some of them. I don't think a lot of them have them, but there's I start putting the comments. So what is it doing? Just a small, I guess, description about it. But these are the list of units, and I guess the best way is going to the category. So like just presets, score, UI, animations, game lifecycle, randoms, actions, movements, and controls. So something that you think could be what you're looking for in one of those categories, you can just check that out and just go through this category and see if those one of these units can actually help for what you're trying to achieve. But I guess having a screenshot of these units or something like that you can always come back to is helpful. I do have a PDF document that you can actually download, and all of those units are in there along with short descriptions. Let me see if I can get that document. So let's go back to, I'll get a wrong one. Let's go back to here, and there's the documentation. So you can download the PDF documentation, and inside here you can actually search for, like, if you want to move something, you can search for move and see what options that you have here. So movement, root, stop, move detection. So some units that you can go through and check out for the options. So that's just a documentation approach if you prefer that. Okay, so let's go and start using these units. Actually creating a game. So in my Discord, I had a request let me see, to make a video request, to make, I don't remember if it was a video request or was on the YouTube, one of the YouTube comments, to create a video on how to create a first-person shooter with SPUC. So let's try that out. So first thing, we'll need our character, our super character, and let's use for now, let's just, our players can make cube. Then for our 3D object, add another 3D object, and this is gonna be our ground. Although we should probably use a plane instead. Now let's use a plane for our ground. 3D object, plane, round. And let's actually, I think I have some materials that we can use. Where is the material that we can pass in here? Oh, okay, it's collapsed for some reason. Okay, so let's use, I guess, green for our grass. And our player, let's use let's use yellow. So I'm just gonna start with a cube for my player, but I think we'll probably hide the cube eventually and just keep the. Okay, so there we go. That's our ground and player. Very simple. I'm not spending that much time on setting up the scene. Let's scale this ground. And maybe place some objects in the scene so it wouldn't be so boring. And that we can see our movement of our player and stuff like that. Okay, so maybe scale some. There we go. So these are our objects. Okay. Now for the player, let's go and create the script. First thing, you need to decide if you want to use a rigid body or a if you want to use rigid body or a character controller. I tend to go to with character controller. No, not character or rigid body, because I don't want to do extra work with the physics calculation and stuff like that. But you do have to. Well, it depends what type of game you're creating. You will have to create some, I guess, physics calculations. If you use the rigid body for climbing a slope or something like that. But let's just use a rigid body for now. Rigid body, gravity is turned on. Now for a first-person game, you want the camera to follow the player. Well, actually, you want the camera to be kind of inside of the player. So let's do that. Position 0, 0. So that's, we see the shadow of our player, but we are like in the center of our player. But first, I want to actually create the height of this player. And that's probably why it'd be nice to use a, not a box, box collider. We'll use a box collider, but for the mesh, let's actually use a sphere, cylinder, capsule. that way the height of the player is a little bit closer to what we're looking for. Or even better, if what we do is instead of having the player inside of the player object, adding a object inside here. So let's actually add a capsule inside of our player object, and that way you can change your model whenever you want. And also we will remove the rigid body, the collider, and put it inside here. The rigid body will actually look for all the colliders inside of all their children to figure out what we're trying to do here. But I think let's actually keep the capsule collider for now. But if we're going to do a capsule collider, we'll need to add some constraints so that the capsule is not going to just fall over. So we want to make sure that our rotations for X and Y, X and Z are frozen, so it's not going to fall over. And the only way we can rotate is around the Y-axis. Okay, so a little bit, I guess, change of plans. Let's add the yellow color again and see how that looks. Okay, seems fine. Now I want my camera to be a little bit higher, so just where you'd think the face would be. Hello. Where you see the face can be. So that's our camera. And what should we do for the weapon? Okay, let's do that. I'm not gonna go through and recreate a weapon in this live stream, because I did do that in another stream. So what I'm gonna do is gonna go inside the game template here, and for the shooting range, I have 3 weapons that we can choose from. So we have a Nerf gun, we have a cannon, and we have a bow. I'm just gonna use the Nerf gun because it's, I guess, more straightforward on aiming and things like that. We will have to modify how it aims, but it's going to be a good starting point. So let's create a prefab from this. Well, let me try to, okay. Well, I'm not going to save this scene, but the prefab, I want to create it in my assets folder, not inside the SPUC unit. So this is going to be my prefab. Let's go back to our simple scene. Don't save this scene. And now we have a gun that we can attach to the player. So let's position there, then we'll have to scale it. And that's really good that in the tutorial, I made sure that all of these configurations for the gun, the rotation, well, the scale is actually going to be considered when you're trying to achieve something like that. Okay, now let's make sure that our rotation, I think the rotation is going to be a problem though, but we'll still have to modify the script to get the gun actually working properly. Okay, so that's, we can move it off to the side and just position it where we want it. So we have a player, and now we need to get our player to move. Now let's add the, what are we trying to do now? link for SPUC for more details. Yes, the link is in the description of this video, but I can provide a link in the comments as well. Let's do that actually. So here is the link if you guys are interested. Okay, so that is it. Now let's actually create a script here. So script machine. I'll start with an embedded and then we can convert it later on if we'll need to do that. So in here, we want to get our player to move. And if you want your player to get move, the first thing you can do is search for move and see what options we have. So we have a move unit, and it's nested, so that means that it's nesting. It means that it's part of my SPUC package, or if you've created your own units, then it's gonna be that. Then we have touch move towards, on move, so some graphical user interface, and then we have stop move detection, then move a vertical preset, and move horizontal preset. So the one that I want is the vertical preset. And what vertical preset will do is inside here, it's going to actually look at the horizontal axis input. So your wait, not horizontal. It's going to look for vertical. Right, we're using a vertical. Okay, let me make sure. Yeah, okay, so I'm using the vertical move preset. So it's using the vertical raw axis. I have both of them because if you turn on and normalize, it's going to be actually normalizing the input. That will help a lot if you're trying to move forward, I guess in like a top down view of a game, forward, back, side, and diagonally. So whenever you move diagonally, you want to normalize your horizontal and vertical direction so that it's not going to move faster diagonally. So that's why there's a normalize option here. But the vertical is using you can use a W or S key or the arrows keys to move. The speed is currently set to the Z1 speed in the Z direction. I'm not sure about the speed that we want to go with, but I think I'm going to start with something like 5. It depends, the speed depends on the scale of the objects that you have and like basically what's the movement is referenced to. Currently our movement is just referenced to those, I guess, cubes or obstacles that were created. So I'm not entirely sure how fast we're going to be moving with speed of 5. But with the vertical preset, the W and S keys should allow you to control your character of moving forward and backwards. So let's test that out and see, make sure that that is working properly. Okay, for some reason the player is not moving. So let me see what's going on. Make sure that I have everything configured. So let's enable on start. We're moving in the Z direction. And for the movement, okay, so everything seems fine. Let's get the camera out and the gun and see if there's something wrong with the setup that I just created. Okay, so y-axis, move. Okay, so I accidentally, when it was freezing the rotation, I froze the position instead. So that's not gonna work because of that. Make sure we switch that. Okay, let's put the gun and the player back. And we're not trying to freeze position, we're trying to freeze rotation. So that's gonna help a lot. But yeah, mistakes, you always happen, silly mistakes. So let's test that out. And okay, so now we can see that we're moving. We got moving forward and back. The gun is set up to shoot if I click on the screen, but you can see that it's not shooting in the right direction, and it is because the gun is currently set up to work in a 2D environment, not a 3D environment. So we can, we'll modify that in a little bit. Let's get some kind of rotation going first. So you can see that this move vertical preset has a follow rotation option. So that is one way we can do it. So if we rotate our player, somehow rotate the player, then this vertical move is going to actually follow that rotation. So let's look for rotate. So again, we have a rotate unit right here, which is going to be just a constant speed rotation. Then touch rotate if you want to touch and drag for rotation. Then rotation limit, then rotation animation, rotation vertical preset, and there should be a rotation horizontal preset. So if you want to use A and D keys or arrow keys to move left and right, rotate the character left and right, you can use this preset, and that's going to rotate our player. And the move, since we enabled the follow rotation, is going to follow that rotation. So let's test it out again. So those presets, I mean, there's 4 presets that I have, and you can do, I guess, a lot of basic controllers, movement controls with them. So now we can rotate, and I didn't mention that, but you can increase the speed, so the degrees per second of your rotation. So if you want to rotate it faster, currently it's set to 20, but if you want to rotate it faster, you could set it to 40, and then it's going to be rotating faster. And then you can see that we can go forward, back, and all of that seems like it's working properly. If we collide something, you can see that we have some physics calculations. So for the speed, I do have I use the velocity for controlling the speed if you're using a rigid body. But for rotating, it's just using rotation, it's not using angular velocity. And that's why you can see that the angular velocity is not resetting. The way you can go around this so that the angular velocity is not a problem, you can just increase your angular drag. So that means whenever you collide something, if that's going to create some angular velocity, it's going to stop pretty fast. So it's still, if I bounce something, like a corner, you can see that it just went around there, but it doesn't continue spinning. So angular drag can help you with that. The linear drag, again, since I'm using velocity for controlling my character, the drag is not going to do anything. It's going to be because I'm constantly overriding it. And the gun, you can see that if I am facing the correct direction, the initial setup of my my player, you can see that it's actually shooting straight, but since it's in the 2D world, it's not moving, it's not shooting straight in all directions. Just whenever you are in the 2D plane, then it's shooting excuse me, in the right direction. So let's go ahead and so I'm gonna actually keep the speed at 50 for now. I mean, a first-person FPS game, yeah, you're not really controlling your character with a right and left keys for rotation. You want to control it with your mouse. So where your camera is facing, that's where you want to rotate it. And that we'll do that shortly, but for now, we're just gonna keep like that. Now let's go and modify our prefab. So that it's going to work in a 3D environment. So I'm going to have to go inside the prefab and go through the setup that we have for this Nerf gun. There's 3 objects. So just the model, and then we have the offset, which has some logic in it, and then we have the gun. And let's take a look at what we have here. So mouse position, and this part is in charge of rotation. Be helpful if I actually had some notes here. So rotation. You can also write title here. So if we want to make a title, a rotation, and create a summary, rotate the gun. So short summary, and that's going to be helpful for to know which script machines you want to add it later on. And then this one is going to be in charge of the spawning the object. So the original is passed by the spawn object. Get position, get rotation, velocity scale. So it seems like all of this should work with the 3D environment, but we'll need to modify our gun, or no, our gun doesn't have any physics or anything of that here. So there's nothing that we need to modify for the gun, but for the bullet, that's where our modifications have to be done. So let's try to find, how do you find, okay, so I can double click and find that bullet, and we'll have to create a duplicate of this because we want to move it into our assets folder. So this is going to be our 3D bullet. And in our gun, let's open that. Make sure that we are spawning this new bullet 3D. Let's go inside here. and look at the bullet graph. So I'm using a bullet graph, and so that I don't want to overwrite that as well. So let's convert it to an embedded one. It's going to be specific to this this bullet. And in here, so we have things like power, which for the Nerf gun, you don't control the power. You just really trigger the voice is a little bit too hard to hear. Is it quiet? Is it too quiet? Let me try to make it louder. Properties. Okay, I'll try to be closer to the mic as well. Okay, so we've converted this this graph to embedded, so it's not going to affect the previous setup that we did for the templates, and that creates a copy of this graph for us to modify. So now in here I have a velocity and a rigid body 2D. That's the one that I'm using, and I want to modify that to be a 2D instead. So we need to replace the box collider 2D and the rigid body 2D with a 3D version of this. So let's remove the rigid body 2D. And the size, nothing special that I did here. So let's remove this component as well. Now let's add the 3D versions of them. Box collider. Let's add it to the shape. I guess we can use a capsule collider, right? Let's see if I can use a capsule collider instead. Because as far as I know, it only a direction. I can specify the direction. So the direction is decrease the radius, X direction. Yeah, let's use a capsule. That's going to have a closer representation of our bullet. Although I don't think that we need that much details for it, but let's still try to do this. Okay, something like that. Radius 5, 9. That looks fine. And now we'll make it a little bit shorter. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Okay, so that's our capsule collider, and now we need a rigid body. So that's the 3D. That's the 3D version of it. Now we need to switch the rigid body. Actually, let's do this. Replace it with a rigid body. 2D. Rigid body set velocity. That's what we're looking for. So replace it. I think that is it. So the forward direction is the X. And the rotation, I think the rotation and all of that should be correct. So let's try this out. So that's the conversion. So how you aim the gun, I mean, if you saw the tutorial, you can look at the tutorial for the Nerf gun. You can just drag, click on the screen and drag, and when you release, that's when the bullet is shot. And now it's working in 3D. So we can increase the velocity and stuff like that, but I think that's pretty realistic for a Nerf gun. Unless you get a bigger size that it's going to be shooting further away. So that's, I guess, there we go. We got an FPS working here. But let's actually set up the camera and the rotation using our mouse instead. That will require us to use a Cinemachine. And let me see. Okay, I don't have Cinemachine imported in this game, in this project yet. So let's go to Project Package Manager, and we're looking for Unity Register. And looking for the Cinemachine. Install. And wait for it to be installed. Now, any comments? Okay. That I missed. I'm gonna wait for it to complete importing. Okay, the import is done. And now we have options to import Cinemachine stuff. So we're looking for the, I think it's a free look camera. Yeah, that's what we're looking for, a free look camera. And look at let's make sure we are the free look camera. I think okay, I need to figure out which one to use. Because the free look, I used the free look for a 3D, third person view, but a first person view is something different. Okay, so it's not doing what I'm expecting it to do. Let's see. I think we're gonna have to change some settings. So it's top ring. So it is uses orbits. No. I actually don't think I ever did a third person with a Cinemachine camera. Not third person, first person with a Cinemachine. I only did third person. So I'm not about to figure that out right now, if I can use that or not. So I guess that is something that I can create for a first person movement. I did do a visual scripting tutorial for it, how to do a first person movement. I think first person controllers. Did those? Yeah, it's two years ago. That's when I did that. So that is up there, and you can look how to make that. But for the first person controllers, you will have to, well, one thing that will have to change is the rotation horizontal preset. We can't really use that. You'll have to rotate it with your mouse position. Okay, that is very interesting. Okay, so I thought for some reason I thought you could. There was a easy option for Cinemachine to set up a 3D third person, but I'm not seeing that option here. So in that case, then we'll have to create another unit that's going to actually give you that option of rotating the camera. Well, a preset that is going to be configured for that kind of setup. I do have an option of rotating the camera. I mean, I have some things I can use to rotate the camera. So things like touch, rotate. But that requires you to actually touch or rotate. That requires you to actually touch the screen, which is not what we're looking for. So for instance, I can go into the camera. Let me make sure I remove the Cinemachine stuff from it now. Okay, let me undo this before I imported this in the machine. Okay, there we go. I think that's all cleared. And now for the camera, I can go add a script here. But this is not really the first person, I guess, stuff, because you have to touch. You have to actually hold the mouse button. I guess it works for the mobile, but not for a PC. Touch, rotate. And let's just leave it 2020. I'm not sure how sensitive that is going to be. And for the player, then what we want to do is remove this instead. Actually, okay, so that's going to just move the camera around. So it creates a free look camera, which is not what I want. Instead, what I can do is add a touch rotate here, and have the x-axis control the x rotation, the y rotation, and the main camera. In here, we can set it so that it controls only the x rotation. So now if I drag, okay, it should be inverse of, unless that's what you're trying to go for. And then up and down is gonna rotate that. The rotation of the gun is not what we're looking for either. So for the gun, okay, first thing, let me make sure I have the drag set back to 10. Then the gun, we're gonna place it in the camera so that the camera actually controlling it. And then in here, we will remove the rotation component, right? This is the rotation. I just want to revert. Anyways, we don't need this, so I'm going to remove this component. And that should get us something closer to a first-person controller, but you do have to touch to rotate it, which will work for mobile, but for PC, it's expected. So there it goes. So but for PC, you expect the mouse to just move the mouse on the screen, and the rotation is going to follow it. So, like I said, this should be negative. And so now it controls better. So I guess that's how you can create a first-person controller for a mobile. But I don't have an option for a rotation of the screen without actually touching the screen. So that's something that is useful for PC games. So I'll have to change that and make that happen. So everything else is working fine. So I hope this kind of gives a good, I guess, example how you can use those units and to create a FPS game or something like that. And now, since we're not using the A and D keys to move to rotate our player, we can actually go to our player and add that vertical, move horizontal. We have horizontal preset, and add some speed so we can actually move sideways. I'm gonna normalize because we're using both axes now. And the side speed, let's actually make it a little bit less, 3 instead of 5. So whenever you move into the side, it's gonna be a little bit slower. And make sure we have follow rotation enabled as well. So now we can move side to side and show like that as well. Okay, I think that's hello. I think that's gonna be it for this live stream. I did get some ideas, new ideas for units that I should probably create. But that is an FPS controller right there. Yes, thanks for stopping by, and I hope this is going to help for people that actually purchased the SPUC. It's going to help you with seeing another example of how to create something like this. I'll probably add this project to another, I guess, template of SPUC and do a little bit more work on it. But see you guys later.